Welcome to the deep dive. We know there's just so much information out there, so we're here to help you cut through it all and get to what really matters. Today, you've given us some really fascinating sources. We're looking at the fallout from a major domestic incident, some interesting cases of international accountability, and even shifts in power here in Washington. So our mission today is simple. Dive deep, pull out the key insights, and connect the dots for you. We want you to leave with a really solid, maybe even surprising understanding of what's going on. Ready?
Oh.
Okay, let's start with the murder of Charlie Kirk. I mean, it's just completely dominated the news, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
And our sources show it immediately surfaces so many complex things. Kirk himself, well, a very complicated public figure, often controversial, said a lot of deeply divisive stuff.
Yeah, the analysis we reviewed was pretty blunt, wondering if he was just Nazi curious or, potentially more. His death instantly became this huge flashpoint.
And right away, the sources highlight major problems for law enforcement.
They really do.
Yeah.
What's fascinating, or perhaps troubling, is how it showcased these challenges. You had lax security mentioned, the assassin getting away for over 24 hours. That's a long time.
A long time. And it really hurts the chances of catching someone quickly.
Exactly. And then the information coming out from authorities was just inconsistent. They apparently nabbed the perp, then decided, no, wrong guy.
They did that twice.
Happened again, according to the sources. So, it just created this fog of confusion right from the start, really undermined trust.
And that initial chaos then seemed to feed into something, well, even more divisive. This alleged law enforcement bulletin claiming bullets left in the rifle had inscriptions about transgender and anti-fascist ideology.
Right. And the Wall Street Journal, along with a lot of other right-wing media, they just jumped on it.
Ran right with it. The sources call it confirmation bias, basically seeing what you expect to see.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that the non-right-wing outlets, they mostly stayed away from that story, almost universally declined to cover it, the sources said.
Which really makes you question the bulletin itself, right? Raises big questions about information integrity.
It does. Our sources were super skeptical. They pointed out how squishy the details were.
Squishy?
Yeah, vague. They floated ideas like maybe it was cooked up by someone in law enforcement with their own political agenda, or, maybe the shooter was just the source used the term stir, trying to provoke conflict, incite division.
So the message was be extremely cautious about that claim.
Definitely. Don't take it at face value, especially with so much unknown.
Even the details of the shooting itself. The 200-yard neck shot. That got a lot of scrutiny.
It did. We found this assessment from a former Marine in the materials. Really interesting perspective.
What did they say?
Basically, that a neck shot like that is generally not the mark of an expert shooter.
Oh.
Yeah, it's more likely, they suggested, either a missed headshot by someone who's not very skilled or, and this is chilling, the mark of a pretty crazy and sadistic shooter trying to send a message. Experts, they said, aim for center mass. It's the highest percentage shot.
Wow. Okay, so against this backdrop of confusion, weird details, the reactions must have been intense.
Intense is putting it mildly. The sources describe this absolute outpouring of vitriol, particularly from many on the right.
Like what?
Immediate calls to outlaw the Democratic Party, to bring the hammer down on Democrats. You had figures like Laura Loomer saying the left is a national security threat.
And Elon Musk.
He tweeted something like, if they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die. Really strong stuff.
But our sources also critique that reaction pretty heavily, don't they?
They do. They point out what they call profound tunnel vision. Meaning there wasn't nearly the same level of outrage when just months before a right-winger killed a Democratic legislator, Melissa Hortman.
Right. The sources noted the contrast.
Yeah. The same voices calling for war now were quiet then. And it wasn't just about violence against liberals. The material mentions this long, long, long list of figures on the right who have been, quote, eagerly looking forward to a civil war for ages.
Decades, even.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, some Republicans tried to cool things down.
Yes, the sources mention Rep. Thomas Massie, Speaker Mike Johnson. They tried to tamp down the violent talk, but Donald Trump's response, that was singled out.
How so?
As one of his greatest failures of leadership, according to the analysis we read. They contrasted it sharply with how past presidents handled national tragedies.
Like Bush after 9/11, Obama after Charleston.
Reagan after Challenger, even RFK after MLK was killed. The point being, those leaders tried to unify, offer empathy. Trump, the sources argue, didn't really do that when it was needed most.
Okay, let's shift to the non-right-wing reaction. How did our sources describe that?
Much more nuanced, generally. Now, obviously, some nasty stuff popped up online. You can always find that. But drawing from lots of responses, the material suggests the vast majority, non-MAGA people, were overwhelmingly against this kind of violence. They thought the killing was abhorrent.
They lamented the death, expressed sympathy for his widow.
Exactly, sympathy for the young widow. But, and this is the nuance, they also acknowledged that the public, Charlie Kirk, well, he was seen as generally a reprehensible figure.
Someone who said hurtful, hateful things.
Right. And who, quote, did a great deal to create the context that allowed for his death. There is this one quote that really summed it up. I don't support the things that led to Charlie Kirk's death, but Charlie Kirk did.
That's quite a statement. Captures the complexity.
It really does. And you even saw this complexity reflected institutionally, like the NFL's moment of silence.
Ah, yes, the moment of silent reflection, not in honor of.
Precisely. Our sources saw that as a very, very carefully threaded needle. A signal from the institution saying, essentially, yeah, this is complicated. They acknowledge the event without endorsing the person.
All of this context, though, leads to something pretty worrying that the sources flagged. This hashtag Reichstag Fire hashtag.
Yes, that's deeply concerning. For listeners who might not know, the Reichstag is the German parliament building. It was set on fire back in 1933.
Just after Hitler took power.
Right. And the Nazis basically used it as an excuse to crack down hard on anyone who opposed them, consolidated their power.
So the fear now is that Kirk's death could be used similarly to justify targeting groups.
That's exactly the fear highlighted in the sources, that it could militarize MAGA supporters, leading to targeting, well, all sorts of groups, social media users, schools, universities.
Even people outside the U.S., liberals in Europe, everyone in Canada.
That was mentioned, yeah. And alarmingly, several historically black colleges and universities received so many threats they had to lock down.
Wow. And immigrants, too.
Apparently, the Trump administration warned that immigrants making light of Kirk's death could risk losing their legal status. It's a really broad, chilling set of potential targets.
This touches on radicalization. Greg Gutfeld claimed conservatives aren't easily radicalized, but our sources push back hard on that, right?
They really do. They bring up Professor Mike Jensen's work at the University of Maryland. He runs this database on political violence in the U.S.
And the data shows.
It shows 150 distinct acts of political violence just this year, and a clear upward trend over the past decade.
Okay.
And here's the key part. The data indicates that 4 of the 5 most prolific perpetrators of violence, think KKK white supremacists, sovereign citizens, militia types, pro-Trump extremists, are identified as radicalized conservatives.
So the data seems to directly contradict that claim.
Pretty clearly, yes.
So looking ahead, what's the long-term impact on MAGA on the right? You might think someone else just steps into Kirk's shoes.
You might, but the assessment in our sources suggests Kirk was actually quite unique. Unusual, maybe even sui generis.
Meaning one of a kind.
Sort of, yeah. He was this crucial link, a nexus between key segments of the right-wing world. He connected younger conservatives with older ones, conspiracy theorists with the more mainstream.
New media with old media.
Exactly. And critically, he was seen as the person best suited to inherit the MAGA mantle from Donald Trump, more so than, say, J.D. Vance or Don Jr.
So his death could be a really significant blow to the movement.
That's the implication, that the movement might well have taken a huge blow with consequences that could last for years.
Okay, let's shift gears now and look internationally. We see some really different approaches to accountability in other countries.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast sometimes. Some nations really do seem to hold public figures' feet to the fire.
Like Peter Mandelson in the UK.
Exactly. Longtime Labour Party figure became the UK ambassador to the US. But he got sacked. Why? His connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
It wasn't just a casual acquaintance, right?
No, the sources detail socializing, letters, contributing to Epstein's 50th birthday book, even calling Epstein's conviction terribly unjust.
So there was a real price to pay for associating with Epstein and, as the sources noted, apparently lying about the extent of it.
A very tangible price, yes. Palling around with serial sexual predators and then lying about it had consequences there.
Then you look at Brazil. Jair Bolsonaro.
Brazil's answer to Donald Trump, as our material puts it.
Convicted. Sentenced to 27 years under house arrest.
27 years. For attempting a military coup to overturn the 2022 election results.
And remember, Trump threatened Brazil with tariffs if they prosecuted Bolsonaro?
I do, a 50% tariff threat.
Yeah.
But Brazil's judiciary wasn't swayed. The sources say they were unimpressed by that ham-fisted imposition on their sovereignty. They just moved forward.
So connecting these, it seems some countries do impose serious consequences for misdeeds by powerful figures, whether it's questionable associations or trying to overthrow democracy.
It certainly provides a different perspective, showing that accountability can happen and does elsewhere.
Okay, let's stick with international, but a different kind of story. Manipulation, maybe. The LeBron James op-ed in China.
Ah, yes, that was an odd one. This op-ed appears during his Goodwill tour, full of lines like, "Basketball is not only a sport, it is a bridge that connects us." Showed up in the official People's Daily.
And people started interpreting it politically, right? Was it a dig at Trump? A way to deflect criticism about China?
All sorts of interpretations, but then the twist.
It was semi-fake news.
Pretty much. James, who the sources note is usually pretty politically savvy and doesn't often write long articles himself.
He didn't actually write it.
No, apparently a reporter took some real quotes from him and then just fabricated the rest into this very China-friendly piece.
Which is what propaganda outlets do, as the analysis pointed out.
Exactly. It became this little case study in propaganda and why media outlets need to be skeptical.
A reminder for places like the Associated Press to be a little less credulous.
Right, because it's hard to challenge propaganda effectively once it's out there, especially when it reaches people you can't just, put in jail if they start asking questions.
Okay, let's bring it back home to Washington, D.C. The legislative process itself is changing. Senate Republicans going nuclear.
Yeah, this was seen by many observers in our sources as well, only a matter of time.
Why is that?
Republicans were getting really frustrated with Senate Democrats using the rules to slow down confirmations for Trump's appointees.
Below the cabinet level, mostly.
Right. So they changed the procedure. Now they can approve those nominees in groups of 10 with a simple majority vote.
Which means they can bundle them together. The sources had a colorful phrase.
Oh, yeah, that if they have 9 okay nominees and want to get Jack the Ripper confirmed, they can bundle him in and probably squeeze Jack through.
Yeah. But here's the really interesting part.
The history of this idea.
Exactly. It was actually Democrats, specifically Amy Klobuchar, who first proposed this very same change.
When they were in the majority and facing Republican obstruction.
Right. So it's a classic case of far better to be first than second when changing Senate rules. Whoever moves first gets the advantage.
Definitely. And connecting this to the bigger picture, it's just another chip away at the filibuster. Carve out, #161, one source called it, maybe exaggerating slightly.
The sources argue the filibuster should just go entirely, don't they?
They make a strong case. First, that it goes against what the founders intended. They specified what needed a supermajority, and it wasn't, quote, absolutely everything.
And second,
that a party needs to be able to actually implement its platform so voters can judge if it worked or not. The filibuster often prevents that.
they did suggest an alternative, though.
The old-style actual filibuster, yeah.
Yeah.
Where someone has to physically stand there and talk, equipped with food, bottles of water, and possibly a catheter. Make it painful again.
So, bottom line for the Senate.
Something has to change. That's the conclusion. The Senate, under current rules, just gets very little done.
And that creates a power vacuum.
Exactly. A vacuum that presidents, and the sources specifically mention, especially Donald Trump, are really good at filling opportunistically. Even Mitch McConnell apparently wants the Senate to be at least semi-functional again.
Okay, one last stop. Let's zoom back down to the local level. Boston. How do these big national trends play out there?
We have a quick but telling update from the mayoral race. Michelle Wu won her primary easily.
The nonpartisan primary, right? By a huge margin.
Massive. Trounced the nearest competitor by 50 points. But the interesting part is her general election opponent, Josh Kraft.
He was on the ballot, but then...
He dropped out and threw his support behind Wu.
Why? What were his stated reasons?
He said he wanted to avoid harmful rhetoric or nasty attack ads, focus on what really matters, the issues, and that it was the right call during a time in America where we need to come closer together instead of igniting divisiveness.
Yet our sources strongly hint that the timing wasn't a coincidence, that the Charlie Kirk murder and all the nastiness after it played a role.
They heavily imply that, yes, that Kraft's decision was directly influenced by that national climate of toxicity.
So it really shows how national division can seep right down into local politics.
Absolutely. Whatever his full reasons, his public statement definitely reflected that national mood. And for Wu, Her path to another term is now basically wide open.
making her, as the sources put it, a thorn in Donald Trump's side for the rest of his term.
That's the quote.
Wow. Okay, what a journey today. We went from the immediate, jarring shockwaves of political violence,
Explored how different countries handle accountability,
looked at deep changes in how laws might get made here.
and saw how even local elections can reflect this bigger, often divisive national picture.
What we really hope you take away from this deep dive isn't just the headlines.
No, it's about seeing the connections, right? How these seemingly separate events weave together and shape the world around us, from, global affairs right down to your own community.
It all ripples outwards. So as you process all this, here's something to maybe mull over. In this world where it feels like the lines are constantly blurring between what's real and what's not, between strongly held beliefs and, frankly, chaos, how do you personally cultivate the critical thinking, the nuanced understanding you need? How do we all navigate these complex stories and maybe even contribute constructively, something to think about?